Nika Timashkova, and I'm a textile artist. I was born in Ukraine, and now I'm based in Switzerland. And I work mainly with textiles that I do installations, or sometimes I even do costumes, videos, but also photography. And I'm very interested how an object that you see in an installation can change, and if you see it in a photography or in a video or in a performance, that it becomes very different to what you expect at the beginning. One of my newest objects are like painted textile objects, so like where I mix embroidery with painting. I must say that at the beginning, because I was born in Ukraine and it was still very post-communist, that actually there was, you know, like in the Soviet Union, there was always not enough of things. I don't know, not enough of materials, not enough of, yeah, just when I grew up in Ukraine, there was like really a lot of time I had to invent things, because I mean there was not a store at the nearest biggest art store. Something was 100 kilometers far away, so it was always about a lot of invention. And when I came back, when I came to Switzerland, which was capitalist, I had kind of brought this way of producing an improvisation with me. But I still can see that very often people ask me, oh, but why do you do this like this? This is not the correct way. Because I very often, the most things like textile, sewing, I taught it myself, and very often it's not the correct way. That work is not referring specifically to an artist, but it's referring to a scientist, Hilde Mangold, who actually did not receive the Nobel Prize, but her husband received the Nobel Prize for her work. And this is not only true for women in science, but also for women in arts, that very often they are earning much less. I read an article that artists working with textile who are female receive 5 times less than male artists. And I also noticed when I see when I say I work with textile, very often people say like, yeah, but it's automatic, you're a woman, you know how to do things. And I'm like, yeah, you also know how to do sewing, stitching, embroidery, and so on. So I can see that there is a lot still, I would say, yeah, disadvantages for women in the arts. I very often use like proverbs or saying, and this play for your sins is really referring to this pay for your sins, where you have to kind of pay for your sins and you're not allowed to show your body and so on. And very often I try to reverse that linguistically, but also in my artwork. And you can see in that there's sort of like lips and tongues and eyes. And I try always to tackle topics that, I mean, in the patriarchal structure that people don't want to see, like lust or joy or female lust. And this artwork was very important for me because it's also referring to a historical female figure. For me, it's very important to bring back historical female figures to understand that we have been suppressed already for centuries. The first place, it's very fun. And on the other side, I'm also researching a lot about head coverings in the religious sphere, in the cultural sphere. And I'm very interested how when you put on a costume or a hat or a headdress, you can show something more about your identity. And I like displaying about covering and revealing at the same time. And when I use costume, I can also cover my face and become somebody else and take another identity or mix my identity. And I really like that about costumes. Yeah, I think for me, identity politics is very interested. I'm very interested in, or is very important in my work, because I have a very multi-linguistic, multicultural background. I grew up in Ukraine, in the Russian-speaking part, in a Bulgarian village. Then I came to Switzerland. I have a lot of languages that I speak, so I'm linked to a lot of cultures, but also historically and through my family who was living in Uzbekistan, I also have connections there. So it's very important for me to always ask question, what is the appropriate identity and how can we maybe not look at identity as something separating, but as something fluid who can go from one culture to the other, or I can be Ukrainian and Swiss and French. Artwork was created during confinement on Corona, and it was very much about the fragmentation of the body and how we, because people were starting to wearing masks, and how you start to perceive the body very differently. So I mean, the eyes were perceived much bigger. And for me, I really liked also how, I don't know, through media images and through the movement of images, also bodies, the question of what is a body became very important. And I mean, it's again, this playful approach to tackle a maybe difficult topic. And I made this huge eye with these hands. And yeah, this is for me like the artwork about fragmentation of the body. And I just wanted to say, like, this artwork I created together with Stella Meris, just as a note. Some bodies was also created at the same time as the big eye object with the hands, and probably you can also see that in the performance. And it was really about the body and the bodies and the some bodies, and how like we became very vulnerable and how our body were perceived differently, and how also because you could see in the performance there are like more, they're not like, how to say, roles, but there are characters that always change. There may be sometimes a medical person, then they become a body. Unmasking that I did together with Hannah Kindler was a work where it was again about using mask to show something. So we usually, people were saying masks take away our identity because we become the same. And we tried to reverse that and to make unique masks that show other parts of identity, but not reproducing the identity you have, but trying to, I don't know, look more, take attributes from female, male, from animals in order to create very, very hybrid identities. It's an interesting question. I think it was really the field where I can invent, and I really like, from the early childhood, I really like to invent things. And I mean, before I kind of went to be an artist, I also studied linguistics because I thought, oh no, I cannot be an artist because I don't know, I need to do like a safe job. And after studying languages, I just realized, no, I have to do art. Before, I was traveling a lot and doing projects maybe outside of Basel and outside of Switzerland. And I think with COVID, I started really to work within the region. I started with other people in a collective, and it made me really much like a local artist in a way, because I really started to enjoy being here and observing the art scene and being more engaged here where I am. Yeah, maybe just my way of working, that it's a lot about found objects. So I use a lot of found, I don't know, necklaces or textile. And for me, it's very important to be sustainable and also to work in a sustainable way. And that's why very often, if you look at my artworks, you can see that there are pieces that are not made by me, but made by somebody else. And I like to confuse this kind of craft, what I do, or some pieces that I maybe do the embroidery, but I combine them with pieces that somebody else embroidered, and also to level them at the same, to put them at the same level and say, hey, it's both